I woke up to find myself in a new life. One that wasn't my own. Somehow, I had transmigrated into the body of Ji Xiaochen, the villainous supporting character in a CEO romance novel. It took me a while to fully process it, lying on a luxurious bed staring at the ceiling, trying to wrap my mind around this bizarre reality. In the novel, Ji Xiaochen had always been obsessed with Jiang Yue, the female CEO. He had forced her into marriage driven by his feelings for her. But Jiang Yue had never loved him. She had always hated him. She eventually rekindled her feelings for her first love, the white moonlight, and wanted a divorce. In exchange, she offered him half of her assets, and Ji Xiaochen, blinded by his infatuation, did everything he could to stop the divorce because he was too consumed by his love for her. In the end, he failed miserably and everything fell apart for him. But me, I was determined not to repeat his mistakes. I didn't want to be a love-struck fool. No, if I wanted to make it out of this unscathed, I needed to play it smart. The moment Jiang Yue offered the divorce, I would sign the agreement without hesitation and take my share of her wealth. Love didn't matter to me. I had a chance to become rich, and I wasn't going to waste it. That evening, I waited for Jiang Yue to come home from work. As I sat at the dining table, scrolling through my phone for the 100th time, she finally walked through the door. Without a word, she bypassed the table full of food I had prepared and went straight upstairs. I shrugged. She could eat if she wanted, or she could starve. I wasn't about to lose sleep over it. As I dug into the meal, I couldn't help but think about how Jiang Yue seemed to have no appreciation for the finer things in life. She always ate takeout at work, never once enjoying a proper meal. Later, when I went upstairs, I passed her on the way to the study. She had just showered, her skin glowing, wearing nothing but a bathrobe. I stopped for a moment, taken aback by her beauty, but quickly reminded myself that she was my soon-to-be ex-wife, and I had bigger things to focus on. Ji Xiaochen, don't stare at me, she snapped as she walked past. I sighed inwardly. She really didn't make things easy, but that was fine. I had already decided no more chasing her. My new motto was simple: stay away from Jiang Yue and focus on the wealth I was about to gain. The next day, I went on a shopping spree, buying anything and everything that was expensive. It didn't matter what it was as long as it cost over $100,000. Yuan, it was mine. Of course, I was using Jiang Yue's bank card, but that didn't bother me. She was rich, so why not spend her money? Later, I was reminded of one more thing the original Ji Xiaochen had done every day, sending lunch to Jiang Yue at work. The problem was she never ate it. She always threw it in the trash, wasting food. I wasn't about to keep doing that. So when the maid asked what I wanted to send to her, I just waved her off. No need, I said. I'm not going today. But then Jiang Yue called. She needed me to accompany her to a banquet that evening. Apparently, even though she hated me, appearances mattered. She had to pretend we were still a couple. At the banquet, people gossiped about us, making polite comments about our supposed perfect match and how our children would be adorable. Jiang Yue didn't even bother responding, and I just smiled and nodded, my mind elsewhere. I was thinking about the divorce, about how close I was to half of her wealth. It was tempting, but it wasn't just about the money. This was a chance to break free from the past and start anew. Jiang Yue, on the other hand, was lost in her own world. The moment the banquet ended, she spotted Linya, the man she had always loved. I had read the book, so I knew exactly what would happen next. Jiang Yue would rush toward him, and I would end up looking like a fool. Sure enough, she ran after him, grabbing his hand as he turned away. I watched them exchange a heartfelt embrace before walking off together, leaving me behind. They were so caught up in each other. It was as if I didn't even exist. And then, as if the universe wanted to remind me of my place, I ran into Jiang Yue's older sister, Jiang Yue, the icy heir to the Jiang group. She eyed me coldly, her gaze sharp and calculating. Your wife left you for another man, she said, studying my face. And you don't seem sad at all. Of course, I wasn't sad. I wasn't going to be the emotional fool Ji Xiaochen had been. I was focused on one thing and one thing only, my future. I had made up my mind. I wanted out of this marriage. Jiang Yue had been distant, indifferent, and had clearly moved on. I, too, had been going through the motions, feeling like a shadow of my former self. Honestly, it didn't matter anymore. I just wanted half of what she had, her assets, her wealth, and then to disappear to live comfortably, a rich freeloader. I sighed, looking down at my feet. What was the point of staying upset? The god of wealth doesn't favor bitter people. It was useless to wallow in it. Jiang Yue, who had been quietly watching me, said after a long silence, "I'll drive you back." Jiang Yue had already left. And given the area we were in, getting a taxi would have been a nightmare. I nodded. "I appreciate it, President Jiang." The drive was quiet. The car hummed along the road and my thoughts drifted. When we reached my place, Jiang Yue opened the car door for me, a polite gesture. I was about to thank her, but before I could, she was suddenly standing very close, her face just inches from mine. I froze, heart skipping a beat. Jiang Yue was a few years older than Jiang Yue. But there was a maturity in her I hadn't expected. Her composure, her presence, it all made her seem unapproachable, and I had always kept my distance. Was she interested in me? But that didn't make sense. That wasn't part of the plan. She stepped back, her voice calm. "Get some rest." I let out a quiet breath, relieved. Maybe I was just overthinking things. "Thanks, President Jiang." The next few days passed without much change. Jiang Yue was busy dating Linya and I was busy spending at the malls, the auctions. It was all a whirlwind of indulgence. I wasn't concerned about the future. I was living in the now. One evening when Jiang Yue came home, I was finishing the caviar I had picked up earlier. As I licked the last of it from my lips, I looked over at her. She stood still for a moment, staring at the leftover food on the table. It hit me then, no matter how late she came home, I always waited for her to eat with me. I shrugged, offering nonchalantly, "If you're hungry, just ask the kitchen to make something." I stood up, stretching as I walked towards the home theater, preparing to binge-watch some shows. That's when she spoke again, her voice sharp. "Have you been enjoying yourself lately?" I paused. Was she accusing me of overspending? Did she think I was being reckless? "Do you think I've been spending too much money?" Jiang Yu's tone was cold, almost accusing. "No, it's just that you shouldn't leave your things lying around. You should be more careful." I winced, realizing what she meant. Our walk-in closets were next to each other, and she must have seen the mess I'd made with my shopping. Jiang Yue had always been meticulous, a perfectionist about everything, and the sight of chaos was likely driving her mad. "Okay, I'll clean it up later," I said, trying to defuse the situation. But then a thought occurred to me, and I couldn't resist. "Then can you stop throwing your socks around? I found a pair in front of my door once." Jiang Yu's face tightened with anger. "Since when do you get to teach me how to live? Who do you think you are?" Right. "You're the important one," I muttered, deciding not to push it further. I quickly changed the subject. "By the way, I was thinking of going to the Maldives for a vacation." I knew that sooner or later Jiang Yu's mother would find out about her relationship with Linya. That would bring trouble. As much as I hated to admit it, going on vacation was probably the best way to avoid all the drama. Jiang Yue didn't seem to care. As long as I wasn't bothering her, she was fine with it. But just as I was relaxing, sunbathing in the Maldives, and enjoying the beautiful sights, I got a call from Jiang Yu's mother. I cursed under my breath. Couldn't Jiang Yue be a little more discreet? I hadn't even had enough time to enjoy the scenery before I had to book a flight back. When I got home, my phone rang again. This time, it was Jiang Yue. "Ji Xiaochen. You know, the person I love is Linya. Let's get a divorce." My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't expecting her to be this direct, but I wasn't going to let her see how nervous I was. I pretended to sound calm. "Okay." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Was she shocked? Surprised by my quick response? "Are you really okay with this?" she asked after a moment. I sighed. "What can I do? You don't love me anymore." Jiang Yue didn't reply. She just said, "I'll have my assistant send the divorce papers to your place later." And so it began. Half an hour later, the divorce agreement arrived. When I saw the number on the papers, I couldn't help but count it again and again. Could I possibly spend all of this? Probably not. But it was a small price to pay for my freedom. I signed the papers quickly, my hands shaking a little, and handed them to Jiang Yu's assistant. "Can we go to the Civil Affairs Bureau and finalize it?" The assistant hesitated. He seemed surprised by how eager I was, but he didn't question me. "President Jiang says, it's fine. She's coming to pick you up now." I hummed a little tune as I went upstairs to change. I couldn't help but smile. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. I was about to be free and rich. When I came downstairs, the assistant stared at me a little stunned. I was dressed younger, sharper, more confident than ever before. I was about to become a super rich man after all. Once in the car, Jiang Yue glanced at me, raising an eyebrow. "You seem in a good mood." I froze, my smile faltering for a moment. I quickly masked it, turning to her with a feigned expression of pain. "Do we really have to get a divorce?" She looked at me, her voice cold. "Yes, we absolutely have to." I sighed in relief, the tension easing. But just as I thought it was done, traffic brought everything to a halt. I started getting impatient, urging the driver to go faster. What if we missed the closing hours at the Civil Affairs Bureau? Jiang Yue looked at me with a raised eyebrow. I smiled awkwardly. "Aren't you busy? I don't want to waste your time." Finally, I got fed up and went to the front of the car to see what was going on. It turned out some guy was on his phone holding up traffic. I knocked on his window and yelled, "Hey, stop talking on the phone. I'm in a hurry to get a divorce. This is an emergency." The guy looked at me like I was insane, but I didn't care. I returned to the car only to find Jiang Yue on the phone. Her brow furrowed. Something was wrong. When she hung up, she told the driver, "Don't go to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Go to the old residence." I felt a knot in my stomach. What was going on? If Jiang Yue was changing her mind, I'd make her regret it. But no, I still needed her wealth. I had to be patient. We arrived at the old mansion where Jiang Yue's mother had fainted from the shock of hearing about the divorce. Jiang Yue's father was furious, giving her a severe lecture. I stood there quietly, feeling an odd mix of relief and frustration. Jiang Yue was determined. She wasn't backing down. And for now, neither was I. I was determined to get half of her assets. So, I continued to pretend to be upset. After all, Jiang Yue was desperate to get our divorce, and I had no intention of letting her off the hook too easily. In the end, she ended up kneeling at the front door, hoping to convince the Jiang family elders to support her decision. It was a bold move, but what happened next was even more unexpected. The rain began to pour from the sky, and I couldn't help but feel a bit relieved. It was almost as if fate itself was on my side. A servant came rushing over, informing me that the old lady wanted me to persuade Jiang Yue to stop with the dramatic gesture. I gave a solemn nod, though I was secretly amused. 10 minutes later, I was sitting on the steps casually snacking on sunflower seeds, watching Jiang Yue kneeling in the rain. I couldn't resist a few sarcastic remarks. "Filming an idol drama, are we in the rain, sister?" The servant was clearly uncomfortable watching this unfold and was about to bring an umbrella to protect her, but I stopped her. If we shield her now, she won't get the sympathy she needs. Let her suffer a bit more, it'll speed things up. I asked her to bring me a cup of tea as I settled in for the show. Jiang Yue, however, wasn't as tough as I thought. After a short while, her health took a toll and she started feeling feverish from the rain. The servant rushed her inside to rest, calling for a doctor. I checked her temperature, 38 degrees Celsius. Nothing to worry about, just a minor inconvenience. As she lay in bed, looking pale and exhausted, I poured her a glass of water with an almost mocking gentleness. "If you really want this divorce to go smoothly, you're going to have to try harder." Jiang Yue, still delirious from the fever, coughed and asked, "What do you mean?" I suggested she go on a hunger strike to get the elders to agree faster. It worked like a charm. The Jiang family elders were heartbroken to see their daughter refusing food and water. I had my own reasons for being heartbroken. After all, every day this dragged on meant I was losing money. Eventually, they had no choice but to agree to the divorce. Jiang Yue's mother, feeling guilty for how things had played out, invited me to her room and gave me an expensive jade ornament as a parting gift. She'd always been generous with me, lavishing me with valuables over the years. I pretended to be deeply moved, clutching her leg in feigned sorrow. "I can't bear to leave you, Mom," I cried, though the real reason was obvious. I couldn't bear to leave all the riches. As I headed downstairs, I bumped into Jiang Yue. She asked me, "You love Jiang Yue so much. Don't you feel bad seeing her like this?" Honestly, I'd rather feel bad for myself. I hadn't even had my bird's nest soup today, and I wasn't in the mood for sentimental nonsense. I shrugged and replied, "Love brain isn't incurable. I've been cured." Jiang Yue just smiled. That smile caught me off guard. I'd never seen her smile before. I was still reeling from that when a commotion outside interrupted my thoughts. Linya was standing by the door demanding to see Jiang Yue. I wasn't in the mood for playing matchmaker, so I told the servants to let him in. Lin tried to reassure me. I've known you for a long time. I never tried to come between your marriage. Of course, he hadn't. He was the male lead in this story. The one who could do no wrong, and I, the villainous side character, would get blamed even if I did nothing. Jiang Yue and I are getting divorced, I casually told him. Lin was taken aback. You agreed to the divorce? Did he really expect me to stop this only? He seemed to treat Jiang Yue like a precious gem. Yes, I said, leading him upstairs. But then disaster struck. Lin, you missed a step and fell. I reached out instinctively to help, but it was too late. He tumbled down the stairs, landing with a sickening thud. Blood pooling around him. I froze, panic flooding through me. My heart skipped a beat as I remembered a scene from the original book where I'd been blamed for pushing Lin down the stairs. But this time, I hadn't pushed him. The hospital was a flurry of activity. Lin was still in the emergency room and Jiang Yue was staring at me with eyes full of hatred. It was almost comical how wronged I felt in this situation. Ji Xiaochen, she hissed. You better pray that Lingya is okay or I'll make you regret it 1,000 times over. I almost wanted to shout that I was the one who had poured her water when she was sick, but I knew it would do no good. I'd been through enough in this mess. Just as I was preparing for the worst, Jiang Yue appeared and stepped in to defend me. I saw it, she said coolly. He didn't push him down. Finally, Lin regained consciousness, and when asked if I'd pushed him, he shook his head. It was an accident. I lost my footing. I breathed a sigh of relief. At least the male lead's character wasn't ruined. But I knew I needed to keep my distance from him and Jiang Yue going forward to avoid further complications. The next morning, Jiang Yue and I went to handle the divorce procedures. When we received the divorce certificate, I couldn't help but feel a wave of relief. It was over. Finally, I was free. I wish you love, I said to Jiang Yue. And I wish myself wealth. I didn't wait for her reaction and drove off in my new Maserati. The assets she'd left me included several properties, but I chose a large apartment with a stunning view instead of a villa. It was cheaper and I didn't want the hassle of hiring staff for the larger house. After the divorce, my life became a blur of luxury. Every morning, I checked the balance in my account, then treated myself to the finest meals and spontaneous trips. The only thing that bothered me was my parents calling to scold me over the divorce. They'd lost some benefits and I had to transfer them a large sum of money to quiet them down. Money might not be everything, but it certainly made life easier. One evening, I decided to check out a new bar. It was a high-end spot, and I figured I should enjoy life now that I was on top. I wasn't in the mood for expensive drinks or female company, so I just ordered a few drinks and sat back. That's when I saw Jiang Yue. It seemed like she was a regular at the bar. She gave off this air of purity, but in reality, she was no different from the rest of us. She quickly noticed me and I greeted her. President Jiang. I figured she might be able to help me out in the future if I ever needed it. She sat beside me and smiled. You seem to be doing quite well after divorcing Jiang Yue, she remarked. I laughed it off. Not bad. We drank for a while and it quickly became clear that Jiang Yue couldn't handle her liquor. Soon she was quite drunk. I tried to leave, but she grabbed my hand, not letting me go. The men at the bar were eyeing her, eager to take advantage of the situation. I had no choice but to take her with me. When I paid the bill, I was stunned to see the cost of the bottle of wine she drank, $150,000. I glared at her drunken form, frustrated. Why did I always seem to get tangled up in these situations? I clenched my teeth, handed over the payment, and felt my heart twist. I had no idea where Jiang Yue lived, and there was no way I could take her back to the Jiang family mansion. In this situation, any rumors about us being involved could cause a lot of trouble. Besides, I was just a background character in this drama, easily discarded by others. If it wasn't for her standing up for me at the hospital that one time, I probably wouldn't have even bothered helping her. I carried her to the guest room, laid her down on the bed, and headed to my own room to sleep. I fell into a deep slumber, and the next morning, I woke up to the enticing smell of food. I don't even have a maid. Who's cooking? I rushed to the kitchen only to see Jiang Yue, or rather the so-called cheap CEO Jiang, cooking breakfast. To my surprise, she was actually quite skilled in the kitchen. She glanced at me and said, "Go wash up. Breakfast is ready." I quickly brushed my teeth, splashed some water on my face, and even shaved a bit to look more presentable. Jiang Yue's fried eggs were so perfectly made, they looked almost artistic. Nothing like Jiang Yue, who only ever seemed to eat takeout. No wonder she had stomach issues. She kind of deserved it. It suddenly occurred to me that I needed to address something. I cleared my throat. CEO Jiang. She looked up from her cooking. What's up? The bar bill from last night. You can transfer me the $150,000. I paused for a moment, then added, and next time, please give me a heads up before we go to a bar. I'd rather avoid that situation. Just as I finished speaking, I felt my phone vibrate. I glanced down and saw an extra $50,000 in my account. A little extra for not leaving me at the bar last night. I let out a dry laugh. I was just showing some respect for the elderly and loving the young. She shot me a glare. You're calling me old. Realizing my mistake, I quickly backpedaled. No, CEO Jiang. You're young and beautiful. Stunning. Really? I'm the old one. I stumbled over my words and added, and the food you made? Delicious. She softened a little, but I was still treading carefully. Since I had nothing else to do, I figured I might as well try to find a job. Given Jiang Yue's extensive network, I called her up, hoping she could help. After thinking for a moment, she said, my secretary's on maternity leave. You can take her place. It made sense. The original owner had been lazy and unskilled, so the secretary's job of delivering coffee and documents was a perfect fit. I agreed. When I showed up for work, I realized that Jiang Yue's office was on the same floor. Of course, I ran into her. What a mess of fate, I thought. Jiang Yue gave me a look of disgust. Ji Xiaochen, we're divorced. Stop following me around. I couldn't completely blame her. The original owner had been pretty shameless when it came to their relationship, but hey, I wasn't the one to blame. I sighed. You've misunderstood. I'm here for work. She scoffed. You good for nothing except eating and spending money. Don't think I don't know. You're just trying to get close to me. I didn't even want to waste my breath explaining. Jiang Yue, narcissism is a disease. You should get it treated. Her face froze, clearly taken aback. The old me would have never said something like that. I turned and walked away, my presence feeling stronger than ever. At first, I thought being a secretary would be easy, just a way to slack off. But that idea quickly crumbled. Jiang Yue was a workaholic, and I was swamped with tasks. There was no time for my phone, let alone resting. Seeing how stressed I was, Jiang Yue finally offered to treat me to a nice dinner that night. At least I had something to look forward to. Later that evening, I walked out of the elevator with Jiang Yue. Suddenly, my foot slipped and I was about to faceplant, but Jiang Yue, quick on her feet, grabbed my arm and saved me from an embarrassing fall. Our eyes met and my heart raced. Just then, a voice interrupted us. Sis, it was Jiang Yue looking at me like she wanted to punch me. Ji Xiaochen, what exactly are you trying to do? I bit back a sarcastic response. I'm working, of course. What else? Jiang Yue glared at me. You're just using my sister. She doesn't need a loser like you around. I didn't feel like engaging. Jiang Yue, you really should see a doctor about that narcissism of yours. I didn't even glance back as I walked away with Jiang Yue. It felt good to finally stand up for myself. For the next few days, I tried to keep my head down and adjust to my new role. But Jiang Yue's calm, efficient manner at work was a world apart from Jiang Yue's tantrums. Then things took a dangerous turn. One evening, as I was heading home, I was knocked unconscious. When I woke up, I found myself hanging by a rope with Linya. I immediately knew this was the kind of plot I'd read about. How cliché. The kidnappers were after Jiang Yue, not me. So why drag me into this? What could I possibly do to threaten her? Soon, Jiang Yue appeared with the ransom money. Not a single glance at me. It was all about Linya. The kidnappers made her choose. Save either me or Linya. It was supposed to be a tough choice. She didn't hesitate for a second. She chose Lin. Yeah. No surprise there. I almost wished I had never been in this mess. If I had known it would end like this, I would have ordered a lady at the bar the other night instead of being so stingy. The rope was cut and I braced for impact. But instead of falling to my death, I landed on something soft. I looked up and saw Jiang Yue crouching beside me. Are you okay? Are you hurt? She had saved me. I could hardly believe it. With gratitude pouring out of me, I clutched her clothes. President Jiang, I'll repay you in my next life, even if I have to be your ox or horse. That night, I passed out from the shock. When I woke up again, I was in the hospital. My body felt weak, but I was alive. Jiang Yue was there, too, looking at me with calm eyes. Jiang Yue is in the next room. Want to visit her? I didn't want to get near Jiang Yue. I shook my head. No. As we left the hospital, I thought I'd be safe. But then I bumped into Jiang Yue and Lingya again. I hid behind Jiang Yue like a coward, but she just held my hand and reassured me. Don't be afraid. Jiang Yue tried to say something, but Jiang Yue cut her off. Shut up. I couldn't help but smile. Jiang Yue was amazing. As we left, I noticed our hands still intertwined. My heart skipped a beat. Was this really happening? President Jiang, I said, hesitating. She stopped and looked at me. I raised our hands and nervously asked, I don't mind holding hands, but what about you? Before I could finish, she leaned down and kissed me. My mind went blank. That was my first kiss, and I didn't know how to react. Jiang Yue pulled away, her eyes intense. I could feel my face burning. She smirked. Want Jiang Yue to call you brother-in-law? The thought made me laugh. Yes, I do. Just like that, Jiang Yue and I ended up together. I never expected Jiang Yue would come after me, but when she did, I was ready. Ji Xiaochen, you just want money, right? I'll give you 20 million to leave my sister. Before I could say anything, Jiang Yue wrapped her arms around me. Forget her, she said, looking at me with fiery eyes. I'll give you 200 million if you marry me. I smiled, feeling the warmth of her love. I wasn't going to take her offer anyway. Jiang Yue asked, then will you marry me? I looked at her steadily. Yes. Then I turned to Jiang Yue. What's the matter? Call me brother-in-law. With her face twisted in anger, she spat out, brother-in-law. And with that, I scooped up Jiang Yue and said, let's go get our marriage certificate.